What I'm going to be talking about today is not just the aftermath of the pandemic. We're transitioning from the pandemic to the endemic phase, but what are the economic, the political and geopolitical consequences of this enormous disaster that took us all so much by surprise last year? And I'm going to suggest that, in fact, the real significance of COVID-19 is not mortality, because by the standards of mortality, this is not one of the world's big pandemics, but its economic impact and its political impacts, those really are making this a historically defining moment. If you ask who are the losers and who are the winners, in some ways it's obvious. The losers are, well, the 5 million people who died prematurely around the world. And you can look at the countries where they were disproportionately concentrated. Countries in Latin America, for example, like Peru, that had really horrific excess mortality, much worse even than in the US and the UK. The winners? Well, there are some obvious winners in terms of public health. Countries like, for example, South Korea or Taiwan did really well with very, very low mortality, almost no excess mortality. But I'm not sure that's quite the right way to think about this. It seems to me that the United States, having done really very badly in terms of its response last year, turned around and did well with developing a vaccine, did badly at distributing it, has done pretty well at regrouping internationally and taking advantage of this harm that China's done to its reputation. So although it looked like really the Chinese had won and the Americans had lost last year, if you fast forward to late 2021, I'm not sure that's quite how this is turning out. The US midterms are in some ways a straightforward thing to call because the party in the White House nearly always does badly in the House of Representatives. And really from the outset, no sooner had Joe Biden been sworn in earlier this year than pundits were expecting the Democrats to lose the House because they already have a pretty small majority there and they'd done rather poorly in the 2020 House elections. The interesting thing is the Senate, because I think at the beginning of this year there was some confidence amongst Democrats that they would hold the Senate. That looks much less certain now. And the reasons, some of which are obvious, are as follows. Number one, the pandemic has not gone away nearly as quickly as many people hoped at the beginning of this year. Number two, we have an inflation worry. And although the economists say it's transitory, I think the public's getting more and more skeptical about that. The southern border has become a major issue, and violent crime in urban America is another issue. All of these things were hurting Joe Biden even before the debacle in Afghanistan. With the debacle in Afghanistan, he was suddenly in net disapproval. Add all these things together and the Democrats have a real problem as they look ahead to November. It looks like they could lose both houses, both the Senate and the House. For years, we collectively have been telling ourselves that we're going to do extraordinary things to prevent rising average temperatures. We're going to reduce our use of fossil fuels, we're going to reduce carbon dioxide emissions, and that has not happened. In fact, coal consumption has gone up, CO2 emissions have gone up, and they're going to continue to go up, because even if Europeans and North Americans reduce their emissions, if China, and not only China, but most of Asia continues to burn coal, then we're going to continue to warm the planet. Are we preparing for the consequences of that? Not nearly enough. Because we insist on having a conversation about things we're not going to do, we're giving far too little thought to the consequences of what looks like a pretty bad scenario over the next, say, 50 years. It's not that huge numbers of people are going to lose their lives because climate change doesn't move as fast as a pandemic, but a lot of people are going to have to move their locations. And that mass migration, for example, from Africa towards Europe, that is the challenge that lies ahead once we've gone through the motions of giving speeches about the things that we're not going to do.